If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me once again, I have Josh. Josh, how you doing?
I'm pretty well rested. How you doing?
Doing good. It's been a long time since we've recorded.
Well, that's the pretty well rested part. I mean, I dipped out, didn't I?
You went on a nice vacation. You went on
three weeks, yes. And then I got back and you were busy. So like 4 weeks. That's a long time.
Yes.
How do we do this?
That's actually the topic of today's episode.
Holy crap. Did we like stumble directly into the segue?
Did we walk right into this topic? I'm sure we did.
Wait, hold on a second. Is that how we normally do it?
That's how we normally do.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, today we're going to be talking about how to maintain a game with very inconsistent schedules. It's actually happening in my current game right now. We've had 2 extremely long breaks between the game, and it's just like, I'm not the GM, so it's not as hard for me to figure out, but as a GM, it's a nightmare. And even as a player, it's a nightmare too.
Yeah. No, it's the same thing happening in my game. Like, I mean, I left and I wasn't here for the podcast, but like I'm running a dungeon crawl. And even like I logged into the Discord while I was on vacation because what else are you supposed to do when you're in West Virginia? And nobody was doing anything. We just sort of hung out and talked. But when I got back, there was definitely a sense of where the hell are we? What the hell are we doing? Who the hell are these characters? And it's hard. And that's just with like a scheduled break. If you get a bunch of unscheduled things, it can get really difficult. And this is also with a dungeon crawl. I don't know about your game, but like if you had like an actual narrative, you could get lost.
Oh no, in the game we have, it's a very complex narrative, and like we're taking breaks at, I would say, fairly inopportune times. So I don't remember, like, number one, you come back as a player and you don't remember anything that you were doing. Okay. You don't remember what just happened in the last session about like the information maybe that you've gathered and like how you're starting to piece that information together. You don't remember any of the NPCs. You don't even really remember how your character kind of has played like personality wise. Mm-hmm. So it even takes some time to like work your way back into that. There's just so many things that are inconsistent because of the inconsistent schedule. And, hopefully you can come up with some tips here to solve that.
Oh yeah. Like I was writing down like problems that I could see in a narrative storyline. I'm like, if I'm telling a story, there are some key elements of a story that rely on consistency. You talk about any sort of theme or concept or introducing something requires repetition, right? It's that whole show one, do one, teach one, or like, you explain a situation. We've talked about this before, and it's repeating an action or an event or something so that your players understand something. If you've got weeks between things, they've lost that first entry or the second entry. And like you completely lose the flow of that. Or if you've got, if you're working on a character arc, NPCs or player characters or BBEGs, whatever, it doesn't matter. Character arcs only work when you can compare where they're at now with where they were before. And if there's like, I'm sorry, who was this person? That's no arc. You're introducing a new character at this point. And it ruins some of the narrative, right? And then the other part, like my absolute favorite bit in a good story is foreshadowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You foreshadow something that's going to happen, and then when it happens later, you're like, oh my God, that was from before. But like, that only works if they remember the thing from before. And I
Yes.
know my players, and I can only imagine your players, are not good at taking notes.
So here's the crux of like the problem that we have right now in the game. So the beauty of an online game is that being able to disseminate information to your players is super easy. And then being able to
Mhm.
go back to the information is really easy because you can do it in cards, you can do it in handouts, like virtual handouts, all this sort of stuff. And like you take it for granted that like it's there, but like no, what nobody does is nobody then tries to summarize those things into like piece of information they feel like is important. And also you end up with kind of that orgy of information, which is you just have way too much to sift through. And so it's hard to even like determine what is like relevant versus irrelevant. And so what you do is you pick up on threads, and the consistency of a game helps you follow those threads like better and be able to like act on that information. When you take a break, I only have so much room in my brain. It's just like gone, gone, gone. I come back to the game and I'm like, I now have to read through all this information again and try to remember like what the heck I was planning on doing, all that. So, long story short, yeah, just don't take any breaks in your game. Just like you just get it done.
Yeah, I'm just
Tell your players it's going to be 4 weeks uninterrupted.
if they can't make it, their character dies. That's how it works.
Yeah,
Or you can just kidnap one of their kids or a loved one and hold them for ransom until they finish the story arc.
exactly.
No, I don't like the info dump that comes from you when you come back from a break. A lot of the onus of making sure your players are knowing what's going on is on you as the game master, right?
But you
And
can't rehash every session. It's not like you could just give one recap.
no,
You
you
get to
can't. You can do a retrospective, but like even then, it's I'm going to tell you the parts that I think are important. Really, you should like, if you can, narrow it down to what parts are important for tonight's session.
yes.
Because the entirety of the story doesn't matter. Just like there's only a couple key points that you know that are going to matter. But I think it's also really useful, and um, it makes it better for the next time is to just stop right there and ask, do like a round robin of your players and be like, what do you remember? Give me something you remember from their last session. And by doing like a little round robin and making each player go through and explain something, and like, yeah, you probably are going to need to correct some issues. Like their information may not be 100% accurate, at least in the first couple of times, but it gets your players in the sense of like, we need to remember this crap or we need to write it down, right? Um, yeah, you as the game master need to keep your own notes. You need to know what the sessions are, and you need to know what bits of information are important for tonight's session, but keep it like narrow it down to that. Don't give a complete retrospective of every session that's up to that date or the entirety of the story arc. Just, you know what's important. Get your players to tell you what they remember so that you can fill in the gaps.
That's a good way of doing it to kind of fill in the pieces that are missing there. Again, there's multiple ways I've seen it done when you have like big breaks and stuff. In the retrospective, which is like or like the recap of what's been going on, you could also say because you knew the players have been gone for a long time, you can say, hey, so these were some of the things the threads you were pulling on like before we left. to remind your players about those things, or at least inspire them to ask questions about those things. In which case, because we've been gone so long, I am fairly happy to rehash whatever information they need to know about them because, like you said, most players, including myself, don't keep notes. And even if you do keep notes as a player, like I've kept some general notes about like what I want to do or like places I want to go. Like coming back after that long, it's so hard to just even remember like why that made any sense to you when like you wrote it down.
Oh my god. I have gone through some notes from old games and I mean like, who the hell wrote this? That's barely English. None of that makes any sense. And those words don't go together.
A lot of times it'll be just like I've got like a bunch of NPCs that like I've got listed that I want to talk to, but I have the context of why I want to talk to them in my head. And so, but I didn't write that down because I didn't feel like that was an important thing to remember. You know, I didn't expect I was going to take a 4-week hiatus from the game and return.
Oh yeah. Well, I give sometimes I give NPCs nicknames so that I can understand like who they are or what context is it they're from. But I'll have like Hot Dog Boy needs a new hat, and I'm like, that doesn't make any damn sense. Who the hell is Hot Dog Boy? Why did I say this? And like, there's this whole situation, and like, it's about some like a vendor who is doing a thing is trying to get a different job, and like, come on, Josh, that's a terrible note. That's not helpful. But it's one of those situations where, you know, the storyteller asks me what's going on, and I'd be like, I have no idea. But there is a whole aspect of when it's online, when you've got your notes online, it's really nice to be able to see uh, the whole of a story and be able to pick out the bits and pieces that are necessary from at least a game master standpoint. But yeah, I know we've talked about it before in how to get your players to take better notes or how to take better notes yourself. That's been like it's been a while since we've done a podcast about that. But
Again, it's a fundamental like it again. It good and bad. The break makes things hard to return to, and like that's just even like through a narrative game. Like if you're like in the middle of narration of a game, if you're in the middle of like action, like let's say you stopped in the middle of a combat, okay, and then you took like a 4-week hiatus, and then you returned, and you're like still in the middle of that combat. Okay,
we did.
What?
We were in the middle of a combat in the dungeon crawl, but it's a dungeon crawl.
It's so hard to even like return to like, so one, combat can get long and boring. We've talked about that.
Yes.
Okay. It is really, really hard to return whatever energy you had into the combat as a spin up in a new game. Even if you're doing it week to week, it's fairly difficult to do. But if you have to go 4 months and then you come back and you're like, I'm in combat. Wait, that makes it even harder to remember like what happened before. It's just like wait, we're still fighting the red guys? Like what's going on here? I thought we took care of this like weeks ago. Oh wait, you did, but you didn't.
Yeah. Well, and then so the dungeon that we had, they came back and it was like they had just finished the second round of combat, and like before we left, like 2 weeks before we left, I had killed off everybody but one person in the party, so everybody re-rolled new characters. You know, it's a dungeon crawl, and one of our players hadn't been there for the last session, so they had to just show up with a new character into the middle of a fight, and this monster had like a bunch of weird resistances and some key like activities they were doing that they had to like pay attention to because it was an arena fight. It was a big deal. It was fun, not a place to leave off in the middle and then, prance around America while your players are not doing anything for 4 weeks. But so it was very important, and like that's the first thing I did is I asked the players what they remembered about the fight, and I answered some questions and made sure that everybody was on board and knew what was going on. What did they know? What had they learned? So they could get back into it. And that's just with a fight. Okay. If we had like an actual story in this dungeon, that'd have been a whole different.
It's really tough too, because that session that you like first initially come back to tends to also be a much shorter session, just by virtue of the fact that you haven't seen people in a long time, talking, recapping everything. And so you spend a lot of time like BSing before you actually get along to like trying to remember what was going on in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, if you're in the middle of a complex narrative, like for example, our game, I believe, is going to end in the next session, but we haven't gamed in 4 weeks. So we're going to execute the ending after like a 4-week hiatus. Like,
that reminds me, if you do take a break and you do game with friends, and you should be friends with your players, you should be friends with your game master. It makes it a better narrative. Don't be combative with your people. Playing with strangers is fun, but that should only last until you actually know them, and then they should be your friends. It's going to take a minute to get back into it, and if you are running that game, don't force the game to start. You have to get through that whole everybody's missed each other for a while and has stories to tell, and because otherwise, if you start that game too soon, it's going to devolve back into
pollute the game session.
Yeah. And then you're never going to it's just going to be like starts and stops and starts and stops and starts and stops until the game is over. And then the next week, you'll be like, I don't know what we even did last week. You should dedicate at least an hour, depending on your group. Like my group takes about an hour and a half sometimes when we haven't seen each other in a while to get back into it, because we're telling this story and we're like, oh man, you got to hear my story about this. And by the time we've all like gotten through the stories and like, hey, maybe we should play some game tonight, we're like, okay, let's take a break and go refresh our beverages, and then we can play a game, which is also really beneficial. Taking that. Not necessarily, I'm not saying that everybody should refresh beverages or whatever you want, but like having, that session where you hash out what's happened in your personal lives, in the real world before you get into the game, so that doesn't pollute your game. And then before the game starts, take a quick 5-minute to give a clear and defined line between this is personal time between friends and this is game time, so that we can all focus.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, you're gonna have to. It's just part of. It's just part of how gaming goes. Even on sessions when you aren't back to back with that, you're gonna end up with. You're like you said, don't try to cut it short, because it will pollute your game, and then like you said, you're just compounding a problem. The next week it's gonna be like even more of like, what the heck did we do?
Yeah, and if it lasts for any period of time, you need to take a quick break to make a separation between fantasy and reality.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's not. I think trying to, give players enough information to get back into it is like probably the best way to go. It's probably the number one piece of advice I can give you. But again, it's trying to reset and refocus everybody into like their shared mission. Again, you lose a lot of your motivation as a player in terms of like what you were trying to pursue as a goal, because you aren't doing it consistently anymore. it's be with that big break, it becomes much harder to stay on focus for what you were trying to accomplish potentially. So like even if you can get back into the narrative of the game, just getting back into who your character is and all that stuff, like it takes a minute. And that first session when you get back, generally a little rough. So, hopefully after an inconsistent break, you can get a couple of sessions where you can sort of regain the momentum to what it is. But you know,
Yeah,
that's
but like we have lives, we have external responsibilities, we have friends, we have family, we have things that happen out in the real world. If you know that there's going to be a bunch of time off between sessions, holidays, they could be coming up. People are out seeing family. Um, it's a thing.
yep.
And it would be really beneficial to make sure that you plan around that in your stories. And so, yes, if it's been a while and you want to get people back into a game, doing a retrospective, asking what they know, filling in the blanks, giving people time, all that stuff is great. But you can also like preempt it. You've got an inconsistent schedule, you know it's going to be an inconsistent schedule. Plan for it. How do you
Yep.
plan for that? You keep stories simple. You make them self-contained. You do like not I'm not saying do one shots, but do like mini arcs. Like where things sort of wrap up by the end of the night so that in 2 to 3 weeks when you come back, you're not, oh man, what the hell did we miss? It's we just finished that thing and we're on to the next thing. Right?
I'd say yes and no to that one. Obviously, if you know that like there's pre-planned time off, like generally speaking, I mean, depending how big your group, this it can be easier said than done. But if your group's fairly small, it's fairly easy to kind of understand like when somebody needs like they're like people are like, hey, in a couple weeks I'm not going to be available to do whatever I'm going to do, and so like that gives you a good sense of like, oh, I should try to get this to a point where it's not going to end in a complete cliffhanger on that week.
Yeah. Yeah, we had Gen Con. We had two of our people were out for Gen Con, but it also happened to be the week that I was out also. So like most of us were out at the same time. But if like we were if some of us were there, it would have been um it definitely would have been a situation where we knew who was going to be out and we
Mhm.
could plan for it. And we
Yeah.
could make a short game or we could make an easy game and work around it. But you can't always do that if you don't know it's going to be an inconsistent schedule. If like, hey, something came up and I can't make it, and you get that message 10 minutes before game's supposed to start, you know, what are you supposed to do about that?
Yeah. So what do you do, Josh? What's the final verdict? How do you make players comply?
Well, it's the carrot or the stick. Carrot is you offer them bribes, and I don't say like give them cash or candy. Candy does work though. If you're like doing in-person sessions, um, that's always nice to have like food and drinks and stuff like that available. But that's just being a good host. Um, bribes can also be like benefits in game for showing up.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's just nice to do. Um, but the stick is always a situation where I put in kidnap a child or other loved one, but if you don't show up for games, I cannot be responsible for what happens to your character in the meantime. And sometimes you might get lost, sometimes you might miss out on stuff, and that is a detriment. But really you shouldn't take it out on your players for having a life outside of game. Playing together is a joy. It's a benefit. It's an activity that we can do to have a good time, to have some fun. And it shouldn't be a responsibility or a burden or stress anybody out. Make it as easy and as peaceful as possible, because this is an activity we do for fun. We do to have a good time. If you make it a bad time for people, they're not going to enjoy it. They're not going to keep showing up. You're not going to have a good time. You're not going to tell good stories.
You're not going to have any friends.
Like, I kill my friends off more than any other of the game masters I play with, but I do it in a way that is enjoyable. They come back every week looking to be like, how can he kill me this way? But because it's a fun time, I'm not being antagonistic towards them. We are enjoying the playfulness of violence. But that's the thing. Like, you need to have that as a enjoyable activity, and forcing somebody to show up, or uh, you know, giving them a detriment if they don't, it's not helpful. Make it so it's easy as possible for them to come back to after they've been away for a period of time, because if they enjoy being there, they didn't want to be gone for that period of time. They were doing something that was either important to them or required by them, and there's no reason to stress anybody out about it. Right?
Well said. Well said. Anything else you want to add to this?
I mean, I don't think I have ever showed up consistently for an entire story arc, even when I'm telling the damn thing. Like, it happens.
That's true. I mean, like, again, people, you have your own lives too, like life too. Like, it happens. But again, like, generally speaking, I can highlight, or I understand, like, when I'm going to need to take a break. Like, or like when, like, things are coming up, then I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be here for this, coming up. You have a good sense of it. Like, maybe that's a me with a family sort of thing that allows me to be more like, I understand when something needs to show up.
Yeah, kids are the worst in this. Is they have no respect for, I'm playing with my friends tonight. They're like, no, but I need a thing. Like, fine. I guess I'll take you to the store last minute to buy supplies for some poster board. Ugh.
But it happens to everybody. Everybody's going to need time off. There's not one person, I'm sure. Well, there's going to be one person listening to this now who's going to be like, I never miss a session. I would never do such a thing.
Yeah, then it's your responsibility to make sure that the other people that do miss sessions don't feel bad about it. That's your responsibility now, buddy. I'm glad that you made it to all your sessions. Take better notes so that when people show back up, they know what's going on. That's on you now. Good job.
And there you have it.
Oh, was that mean?
That's mean.
I don't want to be mean. Okay.
Super mean. If you have thoughts on how to maintain your inconsistent scheduled game, let us know. Level Up Gaming Podcast at gmail.com or facebook.com/level up your gaming. The podcast is on your favorite podcast site or on YouTube. So whatever your listening medium is, go ahead and subscribe to it. Smash the like button if it's on YouTube. Recommend it to a friend. Review it. All those good things. And that'll wrap us up for the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.